What's going on, YouTube? It is your girl LaurenFinesse, and we are back. Y'all already see the title. One of my favorite things to review is a good old documentary. But before we get into the documentary, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe if you are new here. And if this is your second, third, fourth, 10th time here, I welcome you back with open arms. Okay, y'all, I had to move from where I was because I was in like a shopping center parking lot and it was like a lot going on and I just didn't like the characters. So I actually pulled up back to my house, back to the palm trees. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do this for a video because I am doing it in my car. Now the lighting isn't the best, so I do have a light, but it's giving just enough. You can see me. Yeah, and cars are coming in and out so you can see me. So that's really all that matters. Let me move my seat back some. All right, so we got a lot going on, but let's go ahead and get to the video before my light dies because I feel like I haven't charged this light. Really? I'm about to get so irritated. I'm about to get so irritated because why the fuck would you shine your light in my fucking face like that? Child. Okay, y'all, like, okay, let's just get into the video. All right, y'all, so this was a good one, y'all. Dare I say it, but this was the best documentary that I've seen all year. This documentary was so good, and I'm going to tell you why. I think the basis of a really good documentary is a documentary where it doesn't have a happy ending, right? It doesn't end the way you expect. It doesn't end on a good note. And when it ends, you have a lot of questions. So this is called the Carmen Family Murders. I don't think I've said the title yet, but this was such a good documentary. Listen, if you have not watched this on Netflix, go and watch it. Netflix is doing an amazing job right now. They're on a run with good documentaries. And this one, like I said, this is the best documentary that I have seen all year. And it's really good. It's really good. It's a sad story, so it's not good in the sense of like what happened, but it's good in the sense of like, I feel bad even saying entertaining because these are people's lives. Like, these are real lives that have been affected by these events. But if you want a real good whodunit that'll leave you with questions, that'll have you bouncing around on who you believe, this is definitely it. I started one way and like closer to the end, I was like, okay, now I don't know what to believe. But let's go ahead and let's just get into it. So the Carmen Family Murders is about Nathan Carmen, his mom, Linda Carmen, and there's a grandfather, Joe Chilakas. The daddy is Clark Carmen. And then there are some sisters in between, some friends, Linda in between, that make up this cast. So I'm just kind of going to go in the order of the documentary because, again, Netflix does such a good job with documentaries. The order in which they captured this story is perfect. I mean, they didn't go in order. So let me start here. So the story starts with Nathan Carmen and his mom, Linda Carmen. They are missing at sea. Okay, they've gone on to a fishing trip and they were supposed to be back the next day and no one heard from them. One of Linda's friends was like, she sent me a text and said, I'll be back, tomorrow around 5 or whatever time. And she never showed up. So she ended up calling the Coast Guard and now it's a missing persons. They're looking for Nathan, who is Linda's son. He's 22, who is autistic. And they're looking for Linda, right? And they can't find them. So they have the Coast Guard out there. They're searching the coast right off of Rhode Island, and they can't find them. So after 5 days of the Coast Guard looking for them, they stopped the search. On day 7, Nathan Carmen shows up in an inflatable and by some Chinese ship that was out there in the water, the Lucky Oriental. And so they pick him up And they take him down and they're like, what happened? And so he tells the story about how him and his mom went fishing and he saw the boat, the tower. It's like a, if I find a picture of the boat, I'll put it in here. If not, you trust me, go and watch it. But he says that like the I forgot what he called it, the coach, the house, the something, the tower, it starts filling up with water and then the boat capsizes, and he claims he doesn't hear the mom scream. He doesn't see the mom. He claims that he just goes straight into, I guess, survival mode. The police officer are asking him, they're saying, well, Nathan, what did your mom do? Why didn't you say something? Because he says that he saw the water filling up and he told his mom to bring the lines in. And they were like, wait, you told your mom to bring the fishing lines in, but you didn't tell her that the boat was filling up with water? You told her, he said he didn't want to panic his mom because he said he felt like that he didn't think the boat was going to sink. So he didn't want to, you know, tell his mom that the boat was flooding because he didn't think that it was going to capsize, and it did. So anyway, so they found him 100 miles south of Martha's Vineyard. One of the first things that they noticed that the officers and Coast Guards were kind of like iffy about is that he was able to come right on the ship. He grabbed the rails. He was able to pull himself up. And they were like, anybody, mind you, they found him on day 7. They were saying anybody who has been in an inflatable for 7 days without the full range of their muscles would not be able to pull themselves up. Now, mind you, Nathan is a big guy. He's like 6'2", 6'3", slim build, very much in shape. But they were like, listen, even him being 22 years old is just physically not something that, like, your body would go into atrophy, right, without having to use those muscles. Now, they also said, now this is what I didn't understand. When they found him, the Lucky Oriental, just so happened, he said he saw this ship coming. And so he went towards, he was in an inflatable that would hold, I think, like 4 or 5 people. If they were out there searching for him for 5 days, the first thing I thought was, how did they not see him? He was found on day 7. How did they not see him when the Coast Guard was out there? That was the first thing. So, and then whenever he got rescued, he sank the inflatable. And so that also stuck out to me, because why did he need to sink the inflatable? And then he swam to the boat. They were like, all of this is fishy. The whole time I'm kind of like, but he's autistic. He's clearly autistic. And for me, it is plausible that him being autistic, he didn't think that the boat was going to sink. And his first action wasn't to tell his mom. And then he went into like survival mode. He had also like a water purifier and some MREs or food that, you know, was freeze dried. And he had enough for several days, because according to him, he had been on the seas for 7 days. Like the boat, you know, capsized within the first day or whatever, which would align with the story, because the mom's friend, the very next day, she was like, oh, they haven't come back. So whatever. Then we meet his dad, Clark, and he looks like the sweetest man. Honestly, like, I don't know, something about him. He just looks like a really good person. And so it seems to me that Nathan grew up with good parents, and being autistic, you know, he's 22, and they were saying, like, you know, 22 years ago, not a lot was known about being autistic. And so they did a lot for him to be normal. Okay. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So next we find out that Linda has 3 sisters, and they basically felt like Nathan killed the mom, that he took her out there into the open water, the sea, and he killed her. And that's what her 3 sisters believe. Now, mind you, I'm like, well, why would he want to kill his mom? Blah, blah. So then we end up finding out. I hate that people are doing that. Like, why would you pull right here? People are irritating. Anyway, so we find out, because I'm in a place where I'm like trying to be out the way so I can do my video. So like when I'm in a space and there's no one else around, like, why would you come and pull next to me? Like, people are so fucking weird. Okay. But anyway, so Linda had 3 sisters, And then they had their dad, John Chakalos. They're Greek, a Greek family or whatever. So the dad, he was actually in construction, and he started to build these like nursing homes and these different buildings. And so when they were young, they went from just like a regular family to a rich family. They had all this money. When John passed away, he was worth 42 million. Like all of the sisters and even Nathan, they all had like a monthly stipend. I think the dad said that Linda and her 3 sisters were getting like $25,000 a month, plus that their inheritance and trust and things like that. If something happened to them, but they were rich. Then we switch over to hearing about Linda's upbringing. The father was rich, but the father was also very controlling. The father was abusive, physically and mentally. He was manipulative. And we start to meet the sisters and the family, and it comes up that, yeah, the family was extremely dysfunctional. They had money, but the father was so controlling over all of their lives that, Linda at some point wanted to get away. She left when she was like 18, joined the Coast Guard, went to New York. Oh my goodness. Went to New York. They're about to crash. And so they do all of this, and the motive behind her leaving was because she wanted to get away from her controlling father. And then that's where she met Clark, who was Nathan's dad, and they got married. They had a baby. And so then the father basically was telling Clark and Linda to come back to Rhode Island, and that he was going to open up a Dunkin' Donuts franchise in their name, start them a business so that they would have money. They get back, and the father reneges, and he doesn't get them the Dunkin' Donuts. And so Clark, who is the father of Nathan and husband to Linda, he tells how, the father was manipulative, and he absolutely lured them to come back with the promise of a business that never happened. And that's how that's how controlling and manipulative he was, y'all. I'm trying to understand why everybody needs to like pull this way. Anywho, so we have the sister Charlene. Now, something else that stuck out to me is this. The sister Charlene is the only sister of the 3 sisters that participated in this documentary. The mom of Linda and the 3 sisters didn't participate in this documentary. They don't even mention her. I don't know if she passed away. They don't say any of this, so we don't know. But only one of the 3 sisters participated, and I found that to be weird. So anyway, so now we talk about 2013. We go back in time to 2013 because the situation with Nathan and his mom going missing, that happens in 2016. So now we go back to 2013. And in 2013, John, the dad, he was found shot to death in his home. He was shot close range with a rifle, and it was killed in his home. Now, when that happened in 2013, they talk about how the last person to see the grandfather alive, or the dad, was Nathan. And so they're kind of like, well, Nathan, so then in 2013, no one knew what happened, but they knew that Nathan was the last person to see the dad alive. Apparently they had went out together, they went out to eat, and then Nathan dropped the granddad off, and then he went home, and he was supposed to meet his mom, Linda, and they were going on a fishing trip at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, something to note is Nathan was late to them meeting at 3 o'clock in the morning, and according to Nathan, he made a wrong turn, and he ended up, getting his wires crossed, and he went north when he should have went south on the interstate. So in 2013, that would have been 3 years earlier than 2016 when he was 22. So Nathan would have been 19 years old when this happened. And so the police questioned him in that case. Hey, you were the last person to see your grandfather. And everybody in the family is like, he was the first grandson, the first grandchild, and the granddad loved him. But now remember, Nathan is autistic. And so the grandfather was very much old school and felt like he didn't think that Nathan needed help. He didn't think that Nathan was autistic. He didn't need anything special. And so the grandfather was taking care of Nathan financially, and they were very, very tight. We learned how back in, 2012, 2013, Nathan had a horse. When the horse died, it caused him to become reclusive. And Linda and Clark had a camper outside of their house. And when the horse died, Nathan started to sleep in the camper. Like, he was in the camper every day. Initially, they said he would just go out there from time to time. And then that turned into him never coming back in the house. And he was sleeping there. Like, he was basically living in that camper. And so Linda and Clark decided to check him into a facility. They're like, he has some mental issues. And so they put him into a psychiatric ward. And Nathan was writing letters home, or writing letters to his priest about his mom, saying that, his mom wants him to be slow. His mom doesn't want him to get better. His mom is, wants him to not be able to take care of himself. And, the space between him and his mom is, larger than the space between heaven or hell. Just like very weird messaging to the priest about his mom. And so it comes to a point where Nathan gets out of the crazy house, and the granddad I guess he goes to visit, and Nathan is now in that camper 24/7. When he got out of the crazy house, he refused to go into his mom and dad's house, Linda and Clark. He refused to go in the house. His mom, they show a recording of his mom. I guess she was going to leave the house to Nathan, but when he stopped coming into the house, she left her like a video will and was saying, I'm going to leave the house to the husband. Nathan will still get her trust, still get the granddad's trust. So he still has more than enough money. But she was like, I really love this house, and I want to give this house to someone who will cherish it. And because you never even step foot in this house anymore, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to give the house to someone else, which I thought was a little weird. But, as parents, you just don't know sometimes. And so her doing that, she had her reasons, right? I'll give it that. She had her reasons. But the granddad was like, I don't like that he's not coming in the house. So the granddad goes and gets Nathan, doesn't move Nathan in with him. I also found this to be a little weird. He doesn't move Nathan into his house. No, he moves Nathan into his nephew's house, which is Chuck. Now, Chuck is another one who is participating in the documentary. Chuck's mom, who is John Chocolos's sister, twin sister, she was clinically insane. She had mental issues. So mental issues run in their family. They tell a story about how the guy Chucky tells a story about how his mom just was like depressed and slept all day. She was on medication. And so, but they tell us that to let us know that mental illness runs in their family. So the granddad takes Nathan over to nephew Chuck's house, and that's where he's staying. And so the nephew Chuck tells a story about how, Nathan just had this vendetta against his mom. He frequently talked about how his mom just didn't love him. His mom didn't want him to be okay. His mom just didn't, he just had issues with his mom. And he tells a story about how one day when he got out of the crazy house, how he ran down the street in the snow with like no coat on, and he was gone for hours. This is where the story starts to turn for me, because I said, once they introduced the fact that the aunt, the sister of the granddad, had mental issues, I said, oh, okay. So mental illness runs in their family, and Nathan might not just be autistic. Now, the police officers really wanted to get him for the granddad's murder, because it didn't make sense that he was the last person to see him. And it didn't make sense that he was supposed to meet the mom, but he took the wrong direction. Now, I did not like how the police were questioning him as it relates to the granddad, because he seemed to be telling the truth. And when they were talking about motives, they were saying like, well, money is the motive. But it was kind of like, his mom had money, his aunts had money, like everybody in their family had money, and they were like monthly stipends for the money. So money being the motivation just didn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense for me because he just had access to a lot of money. So killing his granddad for money, which I think he would have gotten somewhere around $215,000, which he did. I didn't like how the detectives were questioning him with that motive. But then, y'all, when the shit started coming out, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I believe that Nathan is this innocent, autistic young man. Like, he might just be crazy and might just, have killed somebody and wanted to do it again. So the wheels started to turn for me when they talked about the aunt who had issues. They also talked about how Nathan when he came in and the police asked him what happened, and he was like, how do you expect me to act when my granddad just got his head blown off? Which was a detail that the police had not told anyone. Like, how did he know that the grandfather's head did indeed get blown off? Like, there were brain fragments all over the bed frame, the wall, the alarm clock. Very, very graphic. They were like, how did he know that? But okay, that's something that someone might say. If you said they got shot, you'd be like, oh, they got their brains blown out. But they were like, nope, that's iffy. We also found out that, like, shortly before the grandfather's death, Nathan bought a rifle that took the same ammunition as the round that killed the granddad. They never found the rifle. And he bought it with an out-of-state ID out of state. So he had a weapon to do the crime. But all of that being said, even the fact that he got lost on the way to his mom, which they said that would have given him enough time to commit the murder, there was a neighbor who said that they heard the shots at around 2 a.m. And at 2 a.m., Nathan was already at home because they had him on surveillance going to his home. So they were like, okay, well, the timestamp of the witness account does not match with the timestamp. So they let him go. Then, like I said, we speed up to 2016. And now his mom is missing. And they're like, oh, he killed the mom. The sisters were like, okay. The granddad, okay, we didn't know who did it because the granddad had a construction business, and they were saying, like, he had ties with the mob. So it could have been a mob hit, whatever. They just didn't have enough evidence. But then when the mom went missing, the sisters completely cut Nathan out. Like, they stopped talking to him. They were like, no, Nathan absolutely did this. And now he killed our dad, and now he's killed our sister, his mom. So it was just crazy. And so they started to talk about how Linda really loved Nathan. He was autistic. He had a lot of issues, but she loved him. That was her baby. That was her son. And that she wasn't even into fishing, but that was something that they bonded over because Nathan really liked fishing. They also talk about how they believe that the mom knew that Nathan killed the dad, but that she wasn't going to say anything because, one, she really hated her dad because he was so controlling, and he had, like, put hands on her before, like slapped her in front of the family and stuff like that. And also, that's her son. So she's like, I'm not going to give up my son. They really believe that. Now, Linda's best friend, who's also named Linda, she said that she doesn't think that Linda thought her son killed her dad because she was like, it would have shown in her demeanor, she said no. She doesn't think that. She just thinks that the family was dysfunctional and they wanted someone to blame. And so she went into overprotective mode of Nathan. But again, when that happened, Nathan went into this super reclusive mode, which, he already kind of was, but he went into super reclusive mode. Now, when the granddad died, like I said, Nathan got like $215,000 in the will. They also talk about how he reached out to the insurance company. Before the granddad died, he had reached out to the insurance company and was talking to the insurance company saying, well, what'll happen if my granddad dies? And what'll happen if my granddad gets killed? Or what happens if he dies of natural causes? Like, he sent a whole thing to the insurance company on what ifs, and they were like, oh, that's weird. And then the granddad ended up dying. Like, all of these things started to become not quite circumstantial. It's like, okay, no, I think he might have done it. When all of the evidence started to come up, right? So anyway, he gets away with the granddad's murder. Now we speed back up to now that the mom is missing. So they bring him back in, and they're like, no way you would have been able to pull yourself up on the boat. Why did he sink the inflatable? What was on the inflatable that he didn't want us to see? Because in the open sea, they were like, that's the most difficult crime scene because you can't keep up with evidence once it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. It is what it is, right? They also talk about how the current and the waves would have put him in a different place than where he was found if what he was saying was true. So they started to poke holes in the story. And I was just kind of like, man, I don't know. I guess maybe he did do it. When he got the inheritance money from his granddad, though, he bought a house. And the dad said he just stayed at that house. He gutted the entire house, like a big mansion, but it was on like a raggedy lot. And the whole inside of it was just kind of raggedy. But he was building this house up in the inside, like doing renovations on it. But they were like, this is no place that someone would want to live. Like, they showed the inside and it just looked like an unfinished home from the inside. Oh, something else that they found as well. They found a letter. So when him and his mom first went missing and they went through his house, they found a letter that he had written that was saying like reasons why I wouldn't cooperate with the police. And they were like, okay, this is a weird thing. They also found the bait. They were going on a fishing trip. The bait was left in his truck. So they were like, why would he go on a fishing trip and not take the bait? And why did he have this letter in his truck about not cooperating with the police? Like, all of these things started to like come together. Like, oh my God, Nathan killed his granddad and he killed his mom because he's crazy. He's not just autistic and doesn't know any better. Like, no, he's crazy. He's actually like has a mental illness. Oh my God, what's that? And I will say this. The thing is, autistic people are not like less than smart or dumb. Like, autistic people, they just learn on a different frequency, but they are some of the smartest, most brilliant people. And so when they started to first talk about it, I was like, maybe he is cunning. Maybe he is like, I don't know. So anyway, all that said, they ended up arresting him for his mom's disappearance because they were just like, no, he did it for the money, the note. He left a bait in the car. Also, there was an eyewitness at the docks whenever he was preparing to take the boat out with his mom. He ended up taking the, what are they called? He ended up taking the trim tabs off the back of their boat, the Chicken Pox. That was the name of the boat, the Chicken Pox. He took the trim tabs off the back of the boat. And they were saying that's what caused the boat to fill up with water, because the trim tabs cause holes. And that's probably what caused the boat to fill up with water. Now, the police don't have the best narrative on what they think happened, because the eyewitness who saw him drilling the trim tabs off, they were like, why would he do that in front of people if he was trying to get away with murder? But one of the other lawyers was saying on the defense, he was like, well, he wanted people to see him because then he would have a plausible way to say this is what happened to the boat. Now, the reason why they ended up arresting him for the mom isn't because of all of that. It's because 2 weeks after Nathan was found, he put out an insurance claim for the boat. He wanted to be compensated for the boat. The boat was worth $85,000. And the insurance company was like, boy, fuck you. What? Your mom missing and you trying to get $85,000 out of us and you rich? And at first I'm just like, you know what? Somebody that takes care of business and is probably autistic, they have like a very systematic way. So yes, I'm going to file a claim because I did lose my boat. But the insurance company wasn't going. They was like, no, fuck you. And there was an eyewitness account that he drilled holes in the boat. So he lost the case against the insurance company. The insurance company didn't have to pay him the $85,000. But what happened was all of the evidence that the insurance company had gathered about the eyewitness and the holes and like the current and where he would have been if he sank, like they had done their own investigation. They ended up giving all of that information to the feds. And then the feds took that information along with the things that they had about how it was physically impossible for him to pull himself up and how he damaged the inflatable. It just was a lot of like, okay, now there's 2 murders surrounding this boy. We got to actually arrest him. So they ended up arresting him for the mom's murder. But before they could go to trial, Nathan killed himself. He was found in his cell. He had hung himself. And that's very, very sad. Very, very sad. So you never know. In 2023, they declared Linda dead, his mom. Okay. Remember, the boat crash was in 2016, but they never found her body. So in 2023, they officially declared her dead. And the father's case was turned into a cold case because they never found out who killed the father. And then Nathan killed himself, allegedly, in his cell. He hung himself. And so he never even went to trial. And so the granddad, the mom, and the son all dead. And there are no answers. And that's why this is such a good documentary, because it doesn't end with a cute bow. Right? It didn't end all cutesy and somebody went to jail and somebody blah, blah. No, it's actually a tragedy, because we will never know these answers, because the one person who may have had the answers is no longer here. And so, man, this was very touching. Very, very good documentary. Netflix, kudos to you. Y'all keep coming with it. Y'all keep coming with it, Netflix. All right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get into the house. Child, it is 10 o'clock. I need to go home and go to bed. So I will see you guys in the next one. Please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't seen this documentary, please go and watch it. And then come back here and let's talk about it down in the comments. All right, you guys. Bye-bye.
I'm doing rich shit.